I'm Dan Ball. Welcome to this week's edition of Community Spotlight. I'm here at the Bartholomew County Jail, and we're talking to the 3 sheriff's candidates, and we're going to see what they have in store if they're elected. What's your take on Narcan? It's a very controversial subject. A lot of people don't agree with it in the community, but what's your take on it?
Well, the use of Narcan is a valuable tool for law enforcement, especially for first responders that are on the scene of someone that may have overdosed. I don't think that's a tool that we should give up. I think first responders, primarily law enforcement, should always come down on the side of preserving life.
Well, I think people know I'm a supporter of Narcan. Obviously, we've saved a lot of lives. I know there's a lot of debate out there on whether law enforcement should administer Narcan, but our job is to protect and serve and to save lives. This office is in favor of Narcan. All the deputies have been trained with it. All the deputies carry it, and as long as I'm sheriff, they will carry it and they will administer it when needed.
I think Narcan is an amazing tool. It has saved hundreds of thousands of lives across the United States. When we first started the use of Narcan by law enforcement, I had a lot of reservations about it. I do not have an EMT or any type of medical background, so that scared me a little bit as a police officer to have to deliver Narcan in that type of situation. It has been a good life-saving event, especially here locally. We had an enormous amount of overdoses last year. We had a lot of deliverance of Narcan, and there would have been a lot of lives lost had we not been able to do that.
And where do you stand on opening the old part of the jail? Is it necessary? Are the county commissioners, the county council, are they handling that right?
Yes, I think we've worked with the county council and the commissioners. We've kept them abreast of what has been going on. Nobody wants to open the old part of the jail. It's an expense. Once you open it, it's hard to shut it back down. But the fact is that the numbers, since I've become sheriff, the numbers of inmates we're housing have increased dramatically. You have to have space for them.
At some point in the future, if we're not there already, we're going to have an overcrowding issue. There's no doubt about that. And so it seems to me that some of the cause of that overcrowding is a result that the courts are full. And so I think there's some steps in terms of maybe creating an additional court, creating a magistrate, adding additional public defenders, maybe adding a additional prosecutor. Some of those steps that'll move those inmates through the criminal justice system quicker. Really take a hard look at what are we going to do with the overcrowding, and ultimately it's going to come down to opening the portions of the old jail.
Regardless of how I feel about it, that is already in progress, and that program has already been started. The biggest question is, how are they going to utilize the open part? So I am all for it. I think it should happen. I listened to the presentation. My only issue is, how much of the old jail do we use for addiction treatment facility versus incarceration? It's expensive. It's not in the budget. I think budgetary issues are a huge concern right now. The sheriff has already burned through his entire overtime allotment for the jail for the entire year of 2018, which is also concerning.
If you're reelected in your next term, what are your plans for the Joint Narcotics Enforcement Team?
My plans are to continue to have the Joint Narcotics Team. That is the first week I was in office, that's one of the first things I did, was establish that Joint Narcotics Team with the city, police, and the prosecutor's office. In the history of the sheriff's office and the city police, we've never had a joint narcotics unit where we were both working under the same roof. So if anybody thinks for a second that I'm going to stop that this next go around, it will not happen.
Well, to be successful in narcotics investigation, you have to have a variety of approaches, and certainly covert operations is a component of that. And so I don't want to talk too much about what I would do operationally, because I think you're giving away some secrets there. And I think it's important when you combat illegal drugs that you keep your strategy pretty close. We'll use existing resources at the Sheriff's Office that'll focus on gathering intelligence, it'll focus on investigation, and focus on interdiction and prosecution.
It was time that it happened. It has kind of been in existence unofficially for years. When I worked undercover, I worked as much with Columbus Police Department as I did Greensburg PD. These type of task forces are necessary, but where I think we're missing the ball is we are not utilizing some of the tools we have right here in our county at our fingertips. They know the local problems. They know what's going on locally. We need to engage them, we need to bring them in, we need to make them part of our team, and we need to work with town boards to be able to be fiscally responsible.
How do you feel about working with the Alliance for Substance Abuse Progress? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's an excellent initiative that Columbus has started. I think there's a lot of opportunity there for community engagement. As a community leader and a partner with that entity, I think that the sheriff could have a lot of positive impact. I like this community organization. I think Columbus is cutting edge when it comes to those type of things. I'm impatient and I want things to happen now. I see every day the need for an inpatient treatment facility and more resources and mentors and community involvement, and I think ASAP is where it's at.
Well, that organization has done some tremendous work in the last year, and that whole issue of opioid crisis and substance abuse is such a complicated issue. There are so many moving parts to that it really takes a collaborative effort to solve that. But I'm running to be the sheriff, which is the chief law enforcement officer, so my focus is going to be on law enforcement. I'll support the treatment efforts, I'll support the rehabilitation efforts, but that's not really where my strength lies. I'm a law enforcement officer, so I'm going to focus on everything that I can do to prevent those illegal drugs from coming into our county.
I am a big supporter of that Substance Abuse Alliance. But look, this heroin and meth, it's a community-wide issue. It's not just a law enforcement issue. And in fact, I had put I'd put the city and county officials on notice that, look, we need to be doing more with the community on this and not just the law enforcement. We need more city and county involvement, not just the sheriff's office. I think it's the right thing to do. I think the heroin epidemic is a community-wide problem. Law enforcement can't just fix it. Mental health can't just fix it. The hospital can't just fix it. The courts can't just fix it. It's going to take everybody coming together, bringing a lot of different resources in, and going forward.
Thanks go to our 3 sheriff's candidates in Bartholomew County for sharing what they have in store should they be elected this election. I'm Deon Ball. Thanks for joining us for this week's edition of Community Spotlight.